Hey, thanks for clicking. I'm Grace, and this is where I chat about any of the opinions I may have about any of the literature I may read. And today we're doing something a little bit different than I've done before. I was doing some research for a different video and happened to be reading a couple of books like for background research for that, and I wanted to do some kind of like little mini reviews of some kids books, and I thought that it would be more efficient to just put them all into one video. So I'm going to be talking about and essentially reviewing 3 different children's books today. As I mentioned, I have read every single one of these titles, and in the description box you'll find links to any of the authors' web pages or other works. Let's just jump right in with our first book, If You Give a Mouse a Cookie. This book was written by Laura Numeroff and illustrated by Felicia Bond, and the original published date for this book was in 1985. The reading level is somewhere between pre-K and 3rd grade, and it's listed under the genres children's literature and fiction. I actually personally own this book, a copy that I've had in my family since I was a child. I remember kind of like opening it up, and I loved to just like look at the artwork. I don't really feel like this one requires any sort of a content warning. It's just a fun little story about what might happen if you give a mouse a cookie. Of course, if you give a mouse a cookie, then he'll want milk to go with it, and then it kind of just flows from there. If you give a mouse a cookie, then he'll want milk to go with it, and then he makes a mess and he has to clean it up, and then he gets distracted from that, and it kind of follows this adventure through this kid's house, and they're friends by the end of it, and it's just this cute little adventure with some really great artwork. And yeah, I won't give too much about the actual plot line because I think you should read this if you're interested. But one of the things that stands out to me rereading it as an adult is it feels very comfortingly neurodivergent to me, because it's like as the mouse is going to do a thing, in the middle of that thing he notices something that makes him want to do something else, and then that leads to another task and to another task, and it just leads on this little trail through the whole house throughout the whole day. And like, if that's not the ADHD existence, I don't know what is. So I think this book spoke to me as a child on deeper levels than even I realized. But yeah, this is definitely one of those books that is near and dear to my heart, probably mostly because I grew up with it, and there's something comforting about revisiting those familiar images from my childhood. If you're looking for books for your kids, fun little easy read stories, I for sure recommend If You Give a Mouse a Cookie. And the author has like tons of other titles. There's this style of book is kind of a series that she has. There's If You Give a Moose a Muffin, If You Give a Pig a Pancake. There's another one that I've seen, but I don't think I ever read it. Those 3 are the ones I'm familiar with. So if you're interested in those titles, the description box is where to look. Okay, let's move on to our second title for today, Stellaluna. Stellaluna was actually written and illustrated by Janelle Cannon. Its original published date was April 1993, and its reading level is probably grades 1 through 3-ish. And it fits into the genres of children's literature, fiction, and picture book. When I was doing my research for this other video I'm going to be doing, I wrote down this title on my list and I didn't know what it was. I was like, oh, I've never heard of that book. And then when I went and looked up the cover page, it like shocked me back to this childhood memory of playing a like interactive video game of the book. And I just had like this like vivid nostalgic memory of like clicking through, and I could like see the images perfectly in my mind. And so I was curious about it, and I went and looked it up, and I found kind of like somebody did like recorded a playthrough of the whole game. And so I watched some of that, and it was exactly how I remembered it. So that was kind of a fun little adventure for me. So Stellaluna I would consider somewhat of a retelling of The Ugly Duckling. There's a baby bat. She's fresh out the womb, and then as the mother's flying, I guess, home or something, she's attacked by an owl, and the mother and the baby get separated. And the baby bat ends up in a bird's nest where she lives for a little while, and she's not really fitting in, and she's having a really hard time trying to be a bird. While she's out trying to be a bird, she ends up getting lost and finds herself with some other bats who are like, wait a second, we know who you are. And she finds her mother, and then she realizes that like she was having such a hard time being a bird because she's actually a bat, and when she spends time with her bat people, then her life makes more sense. Then there's this really sweet moment where she goes back to the nest where she was living, kind of like reunites with her bird siblings, and they have this cute little moment of like, it's okay that we're different, we're still so similar in so many ways. And so yeah, it's just kind of this message of like, you can find family outside of your family and still feel acceptance lots of places. And also, I just really enjoy this artwork. I think she does a really good job of making these bats, like, they look like real bats. It doesn't feel like a silly cartoon bat, and yet their facial expressions and just the way that she draws them are so cute and endearing. So I for sure recommend this if you're looking for that kind of story. And more information on where to find that is going to be in the description box below. All right, our third and final title that we're going to be talking about today is The Paper Bag Princess by Robert Munsch and illustrated by Michael Marchenko. This book was originally published in 1980, and it's got a reading level of somewhere between kindergarten and third grade, and it's been categorized into the children's literature, picture book, and fiction categories. This was actually the first time I had come across this book in my reading history, but I thought it was so cute and kind of funny that it was worth mentioning. So the book starts off, it's talking about this princess and this prince, and they like to wear fancy clothes, and they're gonna get married, and then a dragon attacks the castle and carries off the prince. But unfortunately, the princess is left kind of by herself, and all of her clothes were destroyed, and the only thing that she could find to wear is a paper bag. So she puts the paper bag on as a dress and sets off to find the prince. She finds the dragon's lair pretty easily, and then she ends up kind of tiring the dragon out and outsmarting him, and she goes in to save the prince, and he says he basically tells her that like she looks so ugly and she shouldn't come back until she's dressed properly. I gotta look up this quote real quick because it made me giggle. "Ronald," said Elizabeth, "your clothes are really pretty and your hair is very neat. You look like a real prince, but you are a bum." They didn't get married after all. And I just thought that was the perfect ending to a story about a princess saving a prince from a dragon. I love that it's a kid's book that subverts all of the like knight saving the princess from the dragon stories, because there's so many of those, and she saves him, and in the end she saves herself. So I think this is a great book for especially like young girls if they're needing some encouragement and finding their power, or that, you know, things don't have to be a certain way, that they can just be themselves, and it's okay if people don't accept you for who you are. You can go somewhere else and continue to be who you are. I thought that that was an important message to put in a kid's book. And Robert Munsch actually has some other titles that you might be interested in, so again, description box. And that's really all I have for you today. So I'd love to hear from you down in the comments. Do you plan to read any of these books, either just for your own curiosity, or do you plan to share them with a child that you know and love? Don't forget to like, maybe subscribe, and I hope to see you around.